I said before, in the last 8 days, Hamas has launched more than 3,300 rockets at our friends in Israel. I mean, think about that. We've had 10 people in Israel have been killed, both Jews and Arabs. I read a story of a young Indian woman who was visiting Israel, who was also lost her life. Iron Dome has intercepted 90% of the rockets. Hamas is trying to overwhelm the defense system and destroy Israel. 70% of Israeli civilians have run into a bomb shelter this week. Parents and children are being woken up in the middle of the night by sirens alerting them that they have 90 seconds to get inside a bomb shelter. We had Esther Schlesinger huddled within their one-year-old son in a bomb shelter on Tuesday. And when speaking about the event, Esther said, "I didn't have time to grab anything. I didn't have time to grab my phone. We just ran into the shelter and kept hearing explosion after explosion." She continued, "I feel terrible for these parents who have to try and explain what's going on. I literally was holding my son in the bomb shelter tonight thinking I'm grateful he isn't old enough to understand why I had to quickly grab him. Despite all this," she said, "I don't doubt my decision to live here. Even in these crazy times, it is so important to me to be here as a Jew." We're seeing the result of a failed policy of this administration. When you think about it, President Trump called Prime Minister Netanyahu 2 days after his inauguration. The current president took over a month to call the Prime Minister of Israel, arguably our closest ally in the world, certainly our closest ally in the Middle East. When asked, President Biden's secretary couldn't even say whether Israel remains a, quote, important ally of the United States. The Biden administration has emboldened Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, dedicated to the destruction of Israel and the United States, by restarting negotiations on the failed 2015 Iran nuclear deal. They rewarded the PA by restoring millions of dollars in funding to the West Bank and Gaza, undermined Israel and international organizations by restoring $150 million in funding to the UNRWA and rejoining the Israel-hating United Nations Human Rights Council without much-needed reforms. It's one hit after another, one punch to the gut after another to our friends in Israel, while we're funding Hamas and their ability to fire rockets at our friends in Israel.